For over 16 years, I've stayed consistent with my training, my nutrition, and the habits that keep me strong, lean, and healthy. I was the picture of consistency. I trained religiously, I stuck to my nutrition plan, and I built a lifestyle that kept me jacked and lean. But all of that consistency completely fell apart last year. For the first time in 16 years, I completely stopped eating and training properly. For 4 months, I was barely eating a meal a day, and I skipped all of my workouts. It wasn't burnout, it wasn't injury, I just stopped. Because I was inactive for so long, it felt impossible for me to get back to where I was. Just the thought of working out mentally exhausted me. Eating at least 4 high-protein meals a day seemed unachievable. When I finally had the courage to start working out again, my first workout sucked. Every weight I picked up felt like 1,000,000 pounds. I pushed through, but my first week was hell. The second week, a little bit easier, but after a few weeks, I started to feel normal again. Training, eating, and living the way I used to, it all became automatic. But then, I lost it all over again. See, the work stress at the time hit me pretty hard, and I told myself, I need to skip training today. I just need to focus on my work. Well, one day turned into 2 days, 2 days turned into a week, and a week turned into a month. And just like that, everything fell apart again. All the work I put in to get consistent, gone. And I was pissed. I was frustrated, I was discouraged, and I felt like a failure. I thought I was never going to be able to get myself back. I wondered if I was going to be stuck in this never-ending cycle of starting, stopping, and never getting consistent again. If this has ever happened to you, getting in the groove, building habits, and then suddenly falling off for no reason, you know exactly how this feels. But then I remembered one of the lessons that I learned from my time with the monks in Asia. Abhyasa. Abhyasa means consistent practice in Sanskrit. See, when I first started meditating with the monks, I could barely sit still for 5 minutes. I fidgeted, I got bored, I couldn't get my mind to shut up. But my guru told me, keep practicing Abhyasa. So I did. And eventually, I was able to hold complete stillness and deep concentration for 30 minutes at a time. Not because I suddenly felt like doing it, but because I kept showing up and practicing and building momentum. And that was the key word for me, momentum. Picture you're faced with the task of moving a giant boulder. The boulder is larger than you and it weighs thousands of pounds. You start with bracing against the face of the rock and you push with all of your might. You heave and push, and at first it doesn't really move. But after a few more pushes, the boulder starts to budge. It shifts a little, and with that shift, you push even harder. Now the stone slowly rotates. You keep pushing against the stone, and you notice that you can start taking small steps as it rolls forward. After a series of rhythmic pushes, the stone starts to pick up speed. Each push, each shove gets easier. You no longer have to brace and heave like when you first started pushing the boulder. Now, less energy is required to move the boulder. And now the boulder seems to move without the need of your massive struggles. So why does this happen? How come once the boulder starts moving, you no longer need to exert so much effort? The immovable boulder picking up speed and rolling comes down to 2 laws of physics: inertia and momentum. The law of inertia states that an object at rest will stay at rest, and an object in motion will stay in motion. The reason significant energy is required to start moving an object is due to inertia. This is the resistance of any object to change its state of motion. And this is directly proportional to the object's mass. The larger the mass, the greater force is required to overcome its inertia and set it in motion. But once the object starts moving, it will continue to move. And that is momentum. So once we exert force, the boulder starts to move. Eventually, the boulder will pick up enough speed that it will stay in motion with minimal force applied. But what if we wanted to make that initial period, the time of actually getting the boulder to move, easier and with less effort? This is where the law of the lever comes in. A lever is a simple machine that uses a rigid bar and a fulcrum to amplify force, making it easier to lift or move objects. Levers work by distributing the force over a greater distance, reducing the amount of effort required to move the object. And that's the key, reducing the amount of effort to move the object. So to get the boulder moving without a massive amount of effort, we can use a large stick, prop it underneath the boulder, and push down. The lever will get the boulder moving, and then we can use much less force to keep the boulder rolling along. Okay, Braden, thanks for the physics lesson, but what does this have to do with my fitness goals? So tying it back, the whole reason I was able to stay consistent for over 16 years was because of momentum. My fitness was a large boulder, And I've kept that boulder rolling for over 16 years. And that boulder came to a screeching halt when I stopped training and eating for 4 months. So the effort to get consistent again was immense. So let's rewrite the laws of physics to help us stay consistent with our fitness goals. So let's start with the physics formula for inertia. Force equals mass times acceleration. Let's rewrite it for fitness. Effort equals resistance times habit. So the effort required to start equals the resistance from mental and physical barriers times the acceleration of habit formation. So if you've never trained consistently, you're faced with a lot of inertia. You will have a lot of resistance to starting and very little habit formation. You have lack of motivation, fear of failure, perfectionism, and not knowing exactly what to do. So the more resistance you have, the more effort will be required to get started. Now let's explore the formula for momentum. P equals M times V. So momentum equals mass times velocity. So for our purposes, M equals P times B. Momentum equals past successes times behavior frequency. So past successes are your small streaks, your small wins, personal bests, little accomplishments, losing a little bit of weight on the scale. Behavior frequency is your consistency. How often do you show up? So the more past successes you have, days worked out, meals prepped, habits that are stacked, the easier it is to maintain momentum. Consistency, the B in this formula, matters more than intensity. Doing a little every day is more powerful than extreme bursts of motivation. So again, tie this back to the boulder. It's easier to keep a boulder in motion than letting the boulder stop and have to start over again. Okay, final formula, leverage. So the formula for leverage is effort applied times the distance from the fulcrum equals the resistance force times the distance from fulcrum to load. This one's a little more complicated, stick with me here. For our purposes, E times S equals R times L. Effort applied times the support system, the leverage, equals the resistance of the habit times the length of resistance. Okay, so breaking it down, E is the effort applied, how much effort is required. S is the support system, so how we have made those tasks easier to achieve. R is the resistance to actually accomplishing the habit. How hard is it to actually do that habit? And then the length of resistance is how hard does it feel to do that habit? The more leverage you have from accountability, pre-planning, removing distractions, the less effort you need to overcome resistance. So if we have no leverage, there's a massive amount of effort required. Examples of no leverage would be working out without a plan, trying to hit your calories and protein from random sources throughout the day with no structured meal plan, or just trying to work out at a random time in the day with no schedule or structure. Some examples of leverage here would be having a clear plan for your workouts. You prepare your meals ahead of time so they're always on hand, or scheduling your workout first thing in the morning so you don't get distracted or exhausted. So to move this boulder, or to get consistent with our fitness goals, we need leverage and momentum. So how do we create leverage and momentum in our own lives to break through the inertia of our fitness goals? I came up with 4 major rules to create and maintain momentum in my own life. And ever since I created these rules for myself, I have never lost consistency ever again. So rule number 1, action creates momentum, not the other way around. Most people think that motivation leads to action, but actually action creates motivation. You don't wait to feel motivation. You take action first and then motivation follows. Ever notice how you never regret going to the gym once you start? That's an example of momentum in action. You took action first and momentum followed. So I have one major rule of my training: just get there. If I really don't feel like working out, I have to at least drive to the gym. Just get to the parking lot. If you still don't feel like training, you can go home. But what I found is this is a good way to trick my brain. I'm already at the gym, might as well do one exercise. Well, I already did one, might as well finish the whole workout. That's momentum kicking in. Rule number 2, never have 2 bad days in a row. Look, life happens. You'll miss workouts. You'll have an off day with your diet. You'll fall short sometimes. That's fine, but never let it happen twice in a row. Skipping once is a break. Skipping twice is the loss of momentum that you just created. That boulder is going to start slowing down, and it's going to be a lot harder to keep that boulder moving. If you miss a workout today, start again tomorrow. If you went off your meal plan today, tomorrow's breakfast better be back on plan. Rule number 3, lower the barrier of action. Remember, we need a lever to reduce the amount of effort to get started. For my own training, the whole reason why I stopped working out was it was really hard to get to my workouts in the afternoon. Because once I start my work, I just don't want to stop. My workout would interrupt my work and I would lose the momentum of working. So to reduce the effort of working out, I now train first thing in the morning before I start any of my work. This simple trick of moving my workouts to first thing in the morning also created a cascade of downstream good habits. I'm now eating on time, I'm getting all my steps in, all because I made it easier to train. So instead of white knuckling our way to consistency, let's reduce the barrier of action. Number 4, identify the inertia. Simply being aware of the resistance to a task can be powerful for overcoming it. If you feel the resistance or lack of willpower to do something, identify it. Close your eyes and say to yourself, there is inertia with this task. I must overcome the inertia to create momentum. I actually felt this very same thing when I was writing the script for this video. It was hard for me to get writing, but I identified that there was inertia here, and I affirmed myself that I just need to get started. Sure enough, once I broke through the first few sentences, the rest of this script flowed like water. Now, once our fitness boulder is really cruising, it will stay in motion, and that momentum will keep that boulder rolling for a very long time. This is a very good thing for us. This means we won't have to consistently exert immense amounts of force to keep it moving all the time. We can let off the gas from time to time, and as long as we can apply just enough force to keep it moving, it will never stop. A few years ago, I had my first son, and every parent knows those first few months are brutal. But even during the sleepless nights, endless diaper changes and colic, I was still able to train and eat on plan. Why? Because the boulder was already moving. All I had to do was keep it moving. As long as we keep the boulder in motion, distractions and temptations become easier to resist. You're no longer overwhelmed while you're working out. All of your habits are automatic, no matter what life throws at you. But whatever you do, you can't let that boulder stop. Because once it stops, as we've seen, it takes a lot more effort to get it moving again. So to wrap all this up, your fitness goals are just like a massive boulder. The resistance you feel to get started is inertia. Making your tasks easier to achieve is the lever. And the consistency of showing up each day is the momentum. And momentum is the key to permanent, lasting change. But you must keep that boulder rolling. Don't let it stop. For 16 years, I kept my boulder rolling, and then I stopped, and getting it moving again was brutal. But once I regained my momentum, everything became effortless again. If you feel stuck in the cycle of starting and stopping, focus on momentum. Don't wait for motivation. Take action. Don't let one bad day turn into 2. Make success easier to achieve. Recognize the resistance and push through. Once your boulder is rolling, it'll carry you forward. Now, one massive form of inertia that we see is the lack of knowledge when it comes to structuring your workouts and your training. So one massive lever that we can use here is letting someone eliminate the guesswork when it comes to your workouts, nutrition, your lifestyles, and doing the troubleshooting of making sure you're making progress every day. Look Like You Lift Elite is your lever to get this boulder moving. If you feel like our coaching is right for you, click the link in description. You'll book a time to chat with me, and we'll show you exactly how we can design a program for you to get you to your fittest, leanest, and strongest version of yourself. That's all I've got. Like and subscribe. We'll see you in the next one.